Hi, my name is Derek Waters, and along with my colleague Simonda Lord, I'd like to talk to you through ways to manage OpenShift virtualization using an event-driven architecture model. OpenShift Virtualization is a component of Red Hat's OpenShift application platform that lets you manage virtual machines in a modern, hybrid cloud-ready Kubernetes environment. But what might that look like? Okay, here's our OpenShift virtualization environment. It can host both long-lived virtual machines and short-lived ephemeral containers. Because virtual machines are managed as Kubernetes custom resources inside the OpenShift virtualization platform, we can deploy them using all of the modern cloud-ready tools and pipelines that container developers are used to. This might mean deployment using command line tools like kubectl, API calls, Helm charts, or full CI/CD delivery pipelines like Argo CD or Harness. These allow you to perform build, test, sign, and deployment tasks both on your container images and your virtual machines. Once our virtual machines are deployed though, we need some extra care for these long-lived objects. This is where an operations as code automation service can help. Using Ansible Automation Platform, AAP, we can perform all those key day 2 operations that are required for VMs, verification testing after deployment, ongoing application configuration, patching our VMs, and taking automated responses to environmental events. AAP is also well set up to integrate with other systems in the enterprise, such as an ITSM like ServiceNow. Coming back to the events we talked about, this is a key part of ensuring that our application platform is healthy. So what about if we respond to events from the OpenShift virtualization environment itself? Well, that's exactly what we're going to see in our demo today, where OpenShift virtualization is the source of the events. In this case, we're particularly interested in an event that occurs as soon as a VM is deployed. We're going to forward OpenShift virtualization events to a Kafka cluster, which is also running on OpenShift. In turn, the event-driven Ansible module of AAP will listen to those events in Kafka. When a relevant event is detected, indicating that a new VM has been deployed, it's automatically going to trigger an Ansible workflow. That workflow will update the AAP host inventory to include the new VM. It will update our ServiceNow CMDB with the details of the new VM, and it will automatically patch the new VM. So even if an old VM image is deployed, we know that this automation will bring it up to the latest patch level without requiring human intervention. So let's take a look. Here's our virtual machine environment inside OpenShift. And we can see we've got one virtual machine already running. Now this same cluster has an AAP deployed, including our EDA component, and a Kafka component deployed inside this Kafka demo namespace. So we've got our virtual machine environment. What's going to happen when we deploy it? It's going to generate some events which are going to be forwarded through to EDA via Kafka. So let's have a look at what we're going to do inside EDA. What we're showing here is an EDA rulebook. This is what defines where our events come from and what we're going to do when they occur. This sources section defines the source of events for this rulebook. And in this case, we're going to listen to a Kafka broker where we've passed a configurable topic, hostname, port, and group ID. The rules section defines what we want to do when an event is received. In this case, we're after a specific event where the Kubernetes namespace name on the event matches a VM namespace variable that we have provided to the rulebook. This allows us to only respond to events in a particular namespace. We also want to look for an event that contains the message text found PID 4. That is what indicates that the virtual machine is up and running. If we find an event that matches that, we're going to run a workflow template. In this case, a workflow template called add VM and patch, which we'll have a look at in a second. So here's our EDA environment. we could see we've got a rulebook activation running, and this is the log for that rulebook. What we'll see down here is that we're connecting to an EDA Kafka group on our Kafka cluster. So this is now sitting here waiting for events to be received. Inside Ansible Automation Platform, we have our workflow defined, add VM and patch. This is what's going to run when one of those events is received. If we have a look at the workflow, it's quite simple. The add VM task is just going to refresh our Ansible host inventory to include the new VM. And then in parallel, it's going to add the details of that new VM to our ServiceNow CMDB, and it's going to go ahead and patch all of the VMs in that inventory, including the new one we've just added. Okay, so let's try it. I'm going to switch back to OpenShift, and I'm going to deploy our new virtual machine. We're going to deploy a Fedora virtual machine. I'm going to call it OCP Virt Demo. And we're going to customize the deployment slightly. We need to include some parameters that allow us to pick up this new virtual machine and allow it to be contacted by AAP. What I'm going to do is add a CPU core and give it 3 gig of RAM. And then I'm going to configure the YAML. This is where we're going to set some labels on the virtual machine. These labels are going to allow us to both send events to EDA and allow us to connect to it with SSH once the virtual machine has been deployed. Now you note I'm deploying the virtual machine manually through the OpenShift console, but the events are going to be generated whether you do that, whether you deploy it from the command line, or whether you deploy it using a CI/CD pipeline. Regardless of how the virtual machine is deployed, the events are going to be generated, and you can still take those automated events to manage them in an ongoing fashion. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to create my virtual machine. That's going to go ahead and provision my new VM. Now, if I have a look in OpenShift over here at my services, you'll see we've got a service called SSH Service VM Demo. What this service is doing is listening for pods that have those particular labels, and it's going to forward SSH connections through to those particular virtual machines. So in this case, we can see the container is creating for our new Fedora OCP Virt Demo virtual machine. Okay, let's switch over to our EDA console and have a look. Once that virtual machine is up and running, this should detect it and fire our event automatically. There we go. If we scroll down, we could see the event has been detected. Our Ansible rulebook has picked up that event, and it's run the workflow template, add VM and patch. If I switch back to AAP now and have a look at my jobs page, we could see there's a ton of jobs that have started running here. This is our overall workflow. If I have a look here, you could see that the add VM task has already run and completed. That means that our new virtual machine has automatically been added to our host inventory inside AAP. We've also automatically run the add VM to ServiceNow task. So if I switch over to ServiceNow, this is our list of server configuration items. And if I refresh this, we should see we've got our new Fedora OCP Virt Demo CI automatically added to ServiceNow. If I have a look at its details, you could see we've automatically populated the amount of RAM that I specified, the number of CPU cores. If I scroll down a bit further, you'll see we've automatically added the MAC address and the IP address of our new VM to our CMDB. If I now switch back to ServiceNow, if we have a look at our host inventory, we should see our new host inside our inventory list. So if I have a look at hosts here, you can see Our Fedora OCP Virt demo host has already been added. Because of our naming scheme, we've prepended the namespace that it belongs to, but our host has automatically been refreshed into that dynamic inventory. And if we have a look here, this is the task that is now patching all of our servers. So you can see we're patching the 2 servers in our namespace. Falling Snow was okay because it was already up to date, but it's now applying all of the RPM patches to our new Fedora instance and bringing it up to the latest patch level automatically. Now this may take some time depending on how old the image is that you're deploying into your environment, but that has now completed. If we have a look, you can see it's changed because it's updated all the packages on our new virtual machine automatically. Okay, so just to reiterate, we created a VM in OpenShift Virt. That generated some events into a Kafka message queue. The event indicating that the VM was activated was picked up by EDA, and we automatically ran a workflow to patch it, add it to our inventory, and add it to ServiceNow. Now, our demo system was quite simple. The communications between AAP and our virtual machine environment were quite simple. In a multi-tenant enterprise environment, you can make use of features in AAP like remote execution nodes to secure those individual virtual machine tenancies. And obviously, Ansible Automation Platform is capable of a lot more than what we did in our little demo. There are a ton of tasks here in this sample, and there are plenty more for you to explore. If you'd like any more information about how we configured this demo, both Simon and I have GitHub repos here containing further information for you. So I hope this demo has whet your appetite to think about how to manage virtual machines automatically using an event-driven architecture. From Simon and myself, thank you for your time.